The myth of real estate. So when we talk about the myth of real estate for this specific section, we are only talking for our local market, so for Mauritius, and what we have seen through our experience of what is believed by the population to be true and how they actually use those factors to make decisions when it comes to real estate purchases or sales. So Kentish, the first myth that we found was that land is scarce. And definitely land is scarce because we do have a limited supply when it comes to land, but we have also seen that sometimes it is exaggerated when we talk about scarcity, and it does impact a lot on decisions that are taken when it comes to purchase and acquisitions of land. Can you give us a brief understanding of the degree of scarcity in Mauritius and how it actually impacts on sales?
Thank you, Cedric. Thank you, Christian from BI Instrument for making this event happening today. Good afternoon to you all attending. So a very good question. So to start with, we should not forget that we are actually in an exceptional scenario, and the myth we will be talking about is very highly debatable. That's why we call it a myth. So when we talk about the scarcity of land, that land is scarce, we should not forget that this is being propagated by real estate agents. So they come to you, they will tell you that, see, I have a new project coming in. So you got to buy because you'll never ever get this opportunity again in your life. So you think that because there is scarcity, and then you buy, which is not necessarily true. I will be taking examples of few regions and locations. It's not because I fancy those locations that I'm taking it as example, but I'm just taking it for the sake of this argumentation we're having now. First of all, when we buy, we must understand the need of the acquisition. So is it an acquisition that we are making to build a house? Is it an acquisition that we making because we want to erect a commercial building? Or is it that we want just to buy a bare land for mere speculation? We should not forget that there is a limited amount of land in the world. This coupled with the fact that the population of the world is increasing every day gives credence to the conclusion that land prices of the world will continue to rise perpetually, since there will be always be a shortage of land. For me, this is absolutely not true. I will take the example now of, let's say, Flic en Flac. So you have your agent who comes to you and tells you, listen, Cedric, I got a plot of land in a new morcellement, and the price is 35,000 rupees per toise, and please buy it because land is scarce. And then you rush and you make a buy without investigating about the environment per se. So what happened is that if you take that specific example of Flic en Flac, we should not forget that there has been a development around the area, starting from Cascabel going to Flic en Flac and all the way to Black River. So you have options. Either you buy in new morcellement that has been done recently by Medine, or you buy in old morcellement that has been there over the years. So you got choices. So I do not agree with this myth that land is scarce. And specifically talking about the post-COVID effect, you will know that there would be a lot of possibilities of people coming to you to give you what I would call opportunities. And this is the time to seize these opportunities because it's a buyer's market. Now, when I take the example of a commercial property, whether the land is scarce for commercial property, I would say yes and no. Because if you drive all the way from, let's say, the runabout of Cascabel and drive down to Flic en Flac, plenty of empty spaces. that could eventually be converted. But we should not forget that converting a property for a different use, rather than the present use it is being used now, you need to go for all the permits and applications and whatnot. And you should not forget that when we talk about the main roads, to be able to convert a property from a specific use to that of a commercial, you need to go for the conversion probably. You would need to get your BLUP. You would need to apply to the RDA to make a traffic impact assessment, because you can't just allow people to bring their vehicles in and go out. This might create hazards on the road. So it could be that for commercial properties, there might be scarcity, but depending on location. So what I would say is that this myth of scarcity for land does not stand at all. Furthermore, a look at the numbers will explain that this is not the case for just one simple reason. It is true that there is a limited amount of land in the world, but technological development is making it possible to make more efficient use of this land. Studies have shown and concluded that population of the world would rise, but we have reached, I think, a peak. So if you have a peak in terms of growth, so how much can you buy? So the simple basic conclusion I would say on that specific myth, it's that it's something that is the art of selling, the art of convincing your buyers that, you know, come and buy this land because you won't find this anywhere in the world.
Okay, thank you, Kentish. I totally join you on that. I think scarcity is exaggerated in Mauritius. It's exaggerated to sell at higher prices. So that's definitely something that we can see happening in Mauritius. But I totally join you on that. And you talk about innovation and how buildings are changing with skyscrapers and apartments, people becoming more and more willing to buy apartments now. Maybe scarcity is not that much. It's not what they are telling us it is actually. So the second point that I would like to raise is the second myth that we are talking about is the past performance, which is most of the time used to determine future performance of a property. Can we truly use past performance to measure future performance, Kentish, knowing that we are at a stage where COVID has changed everything we know today? Can we still use, or was it good to use it before? And can we still use past performance to measure the future performance of real estate?
My honest, humble opinion is no. Because there are two elements that you normally use as property professionals to talk about property performances. One is in terms of the rental yield. You invest in a property because you want to get something in return. What would be your rental, etc. And the second would be the capital appreciation based on when you purchase and when you want to exit, how much you would receive from it. So it's a matter of valuation and speculation. We should not forget that post-COVID-19, there would be few things that we would have to pay attention to. One is the occupancy rate. Let's take the example of a commercial property where we are more concerned about yields, we are more concerned about return on the investment, we are more concerned about tenants paying the rental, etc. The occupancy rate would play a role, an important role. The rate of tenant turnover would play an important role. And I believe there would be a high rate of tenant turnover. I'll explain why. In our previous webinar, we did mention something with regards to the tenants fighting hard to find businesses. Tenants working hard because there is less of disposable income, and probably their individual turnovers in those shops, malls, etc., might fall. So what will happen is that, let's put it this way, that you are the owner of a commercial complex. You will have only one option, not two options. That you deal with your tenant, you try to convince them that now I'm going to reduce my rental, you please stay and operate. So by reducing that rental for you to keep on operating in that place, you would decrease the rental yield of the landlord. So definitely the past performance that has given in terms of figures, how much they have been yielding, how much they have been paying as dividend if you're investing in a property fund per se, you would definitely not be able to use past performance as a benchmark to determine what will be the future performance of your property. So I think it is very important now to look at the new tendency of working from home. We had a discussion on that, and the main question that is being asked by many of our clients, by many of us, is that, is it something that is workable in the long term? And I would say yes. I will take the example of our accountant who's working from home and using a team viewer to know what is happening in the office. So why should he move from his house to come to the office where he can do the same job, probably with the same level of efficiency, and stay at home? So there would be definitely a drop down in demand for office spaces, or there would be big offices that would scale down the operations in terms of available spaces. But we should not forget one thing. When we talk about that concept of people working from home, there is one thing which is happening. People are trying to improve their environment at home to work. I would be very happy if, for example, I sit in a place and I can talk to you the way we're doing now, but at the back there are pictures of my grandfather, pictures of my grandmother, which is not corporate. So there are people now, I would be happy to have them behind my back, but we need to have professional setups, and this is the tendency. So if this tendency goes on, so what will happen is that the performance of properties which were being rented out would definitely fall. So I don't think at this point in time, mainly speaking post-COVID-19, that we should be using past performances to predict future performance.
Yes, I'm totally agreeable with you on that, Kentish. I think we speak a lot about the new normal, but everything is changing. The way we live will change. So how can we actually still use past performance when we are living COVID, which is something that has never happened really before? So the third myth that we have, and I think if I can use an example, is it's very linked to scarcity. Is that we will always find clients that will come to us and say, okay, I want to buy this property, and well, land is scarce. I need to buy it now, otherwise I won't have an opportunity like this again. And there's something that people don't necessarily understand when it comes to real estate is the time that it actually takes for real estate to change hands. The times actually take for you to find the right property, because properties are not listed at the same time all the time. It will happen in various batch, in various sessions. So we have to wait for those different time periods to buy property. So Kentish, the third myth is real estate investment can change hands easily. People do believe that real estate can change hands like in 2 months, 3 months. Is that true? Is that true to say that you can buy, sell real estate just like that in the space of 2 months?
Concrete example. If I put the Air Mauritius building, I'm not criticizing, it's just an observation as I do regularly. If I put that building on the market this afternoon, would you think tomorrow morning someone will go and grab it? This is not the case. Real estate investment has proved over the years that it is the less volatile type of investment, because the rate of appreciation is much more than if you invest in shares on the stock exchange, etc. And you have seen what has happened over the past 3-4 months across the globe, indices, share prices has been continuously falling with a lot of speculation around. With recently the Chinese government delisting, the American government delisting Chinese companies on their real estate. No, I think we should not forget that real estate, building as such, is a very illiquid asset. Apart from bare lands, apart from speculations that you have made and opportunity that you have taken, selling a bare land is much more easier than you would be selling a commercial building, for example. So I would not see, if we just come and say that, yes, real estate can't change hands, but the real estate market would have collapsed. There are properties that you can sell easily, but there are properties that you can't. So what is happening is that with an oversupply on the market, investors, real estate buyers would be very more cautious. So they would analyze. They would be thinking, so what would be the opportunity? Either I'm buying as an investment or buying for personal use. So can it change hands easily? Yes, it depends on the size of the investment. And there's one thing which I should mention here, is that the maintenance of a building, and I will take a concrete example which probably will prove me right. The maintenance of a building plays a crucial role for its transaction, for it to be readily available for sale, for it to have a high demand. You should not forget that in the years end 1990, 2000, all those buildings now are accommodating commercial banks like MPCB, that is Mobank, Shibani Finance, BCP Bank. That corner of Place d'Orme used to be a ruin. Why was it a ruin? Because the landlords of those buildings did not have enough of rental to maintain the building. And it is in that specific option that the Landlords and Tenant Act was amended in the year 2003-2004 to allow landlords to increase the rental over a period of 10 years. I think it's still going on because they have given an extension to that. But the rental has moved from 10-15 rupees per square foot to 100 rupees per square foot. Those in the banks attending now knows exactly what I'm saying and what is the rental, for example, being paid at Place d'Orme. So if you don't maintain your building, don't think that if tomorrow morning when you wake up, you say, okay, my building is worth 10 million rupees or 20 million rupees. So there are a lot of factors that determines how you can sell your property and how fast can you sell these properties.
Okay, thank you, Kentish. Just if you can rush those two last factors, just so we can touch everything. Probably the thing that is believed by most of the Mauritians is buying is always better than renting. And I don't know, that's a funny concept for me because people don't really understand that buying means taking debt, and renting is you have advantages with renting that they don't necessarily consider when considering properties. Kentish, is buying always better than renting?
No, again, there are choices. You see, property buyers all over the world have an emotional connection with the real estate that they purchase. I'll take an example. Let's say my grandparents lives in the south in Chemin-Grenier, and that I want to buy a house near that. For me, it's more of an emotional investment than a proper investment as such. I don't think that buying is better than renting. Renting is better than buying. We should take a concrete example. Let's say I have to stay in a specific region, let's say for 10 years. And when I make my budget, if I take a loan, buy a ready-made house, or buy a plot of land and build a house, let's say my repayment is around 50,000 rupees per month. when you buy something, you always buy something which is functional to you. You don't buy something which is functional to someone else. For example, an handicapped person would not be staying on the first floor. They would be staying on the ground floor. So I strongly believe that if we have the opportunity to rent, because for me that property is for specific reason, and while renting I'm paying, let's say, 25,000 rupees. So why should I spend 25,000 rupees more? I would have saved 25,000 rupees. But when we looked at it from an investment perspective, yes, buying is a good option when you speculate. I will take the example of what is happening in the South. Over the past 2 decades, the majority of developments that has taken place around Mauritius has been in the center, let's say Eden and Port-Louis, has been on the west coast, has been on the north coast, has been on the east coast. And the south coast, I'm not saying because I come from south, I said I don't fancy any region, it's just an argumentation. You would note that lately there has been plenty of developments in the south, starting from Riambel, going to Le Chaland, with a new hotel that has been built by the Karunji Group, with the number of residential morcellement that has been put on sale by Omnicane and other developers near the region of Blue Bay, etc. So, technically speaking, I think we should not forget that buying should be something which is analyzed based on your investment requirements. Renting should be based on your operational requirements. Post-COVID-19, why should I rent an office where 50% of my staff will be working from home? So these are options which we should consider, which people is analyzing, which people knows already. So I don't personally agree with the statement that buying is better than renting or vice versa.
Okay, thank you, Gantish. I totally agree with you on this point. I think the way people see buying a property is like, I'll buy a property at 1 million today, and in 20 years it will be worth 2 to 3 million. And that's the only thing that they consider, and they don't really consider the interest that they are paying all this time, the inflation rate, and other costs that they repairs and maintenance. It's very costly, and all of those costs. And at the end of the day, sometimes buying definitely is not worth the investment that you actually was looking for. The last myth that we're touching, and I think this is the big myth when it comes to real estate, is that land and building prices always go up. So you will talk to anyone. We have a few bankers here also, and we found that also coming from banks. My land prices is supposed to always increase. My building price is supposed to always increase. And one of the big reasons I think we believe that is we haven't had not necessarily the chance, but we haven't lived the subprime crisis where this was found to be totally wrong. So, Kentish, is land and building prices something that always goes up?
No, I don't agree with this also. Land prices goes up when there is a lot of demand. And who creates this demand? We create this demand. It's the law of demand and supply that dictates the price of the property. If you take the example of, I did explain that probably in one of the other webinars we did. In the year 2000, when Medin Sugar State started doing the very first morcellement in Saint-Jacques, the price was around 4,500 rupees per toise. And today, the price is 32,000 rupees per toise. A huge increase. But will that keep on going? I would say no. Why no? Because there are other options. I'll explain. Let's put it this way, that you want to buy a plot of land because you want to be near the beach. Why should you spend 32,000 rupees per toise whereby you can purchase something just 10 minutes away at 16,000 rupees per square. So I believe that land prices does not necessarily go up. If there are people that has been doing plenty of speculations over the years, in Upper Plain Williams, you name it, with what is happening now with regards to uncertainties, with regards to people that would be forced to probably sell their property because they got to pay debts, people that would be forced to sell because they know that the price has stabilized. So I don't think the rate of increase that has happened over the past decade would be the same in the next 2-3 years. But with regards to building, you should not forget one thing. We as property professionals, we as valuers, we attach enormous importance on the CPI, that is the construction price index. The cost of bricks and mortar remains the same for any building you build. But depending on the finishes that you do, this will vary. In a moment of uncertainty as we are now, there is a probability, because there is a lack of raw materials in terms of finishes on the market, that price may go up temporarily. But this will have to be managed. This will be resolved sooner or later. We should not forget that, you see, when people were bringing 200, 300 containers from China, when you work out the freight, 300 containers on a ship to Mauritius, per container, it will cost you less. That's the freight issue. But if you're bringing the same ship, they'll spend the same amount on fuel. They'll spend the same amount on their logistic. Obviously, the rate per container would increase. So that would be temporary. So building prices would definitely have an impact on assessment. But now, very often we see these situations. From the outside, when you look at a building, it looks like a wing, and when you go inside, it's like a palace. So I think there should be that individual type of assessment to be able to give the proper values. So when we say that land prices always go up, not necessarily true. And when you say that building prices always go up, not necessarily true. In the present context, where rental yield will be decreasing, would you think if I get, let's say, I have 2% return on my investment in investing in a commercial property, and if I go in a probably high risk investment and I have 5%, I would not make that choice of having 2%. So it is not true to say that. It's a myth, and it will remain a myth.